Before we dive into today's cases, if you find yourself drawn to the darker corners of human nature and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Something about Japan fascinates the world. The efficiency, the safety, the way small children walk to school alone without a second thought. How commuters doze off on trains, clutching nothing but trust. It's a country that radiates order and control. But beneath that polished surface, beneath the convenience stores that never close and the vending machines on every corner, there exists another Japan. One where people vanish without explanation, where manipulation thrives in silence, where cases go cold not because of lack of evidence, but because of lack of answers that make sense. Today we're exploring 5 disturbing cases from Japan. Cases that shattered the illusion of safety. Cases that remain unsolved not because investigators didn't try, but because the truth seems to slip through fingers like smoke. These aren't your typical true crime stories. These are puzzles with missing pieces. Mysteries where every answer leads to 3 more questions. In the autumn of 2000, census workers fanned out across Tokyo, going door to door for the National Population Survey. One such worker had been assigned to Kamedo, a quiet residential district in East Tokyo. His route included the Rek Kamedo Green Mansion, a fairly upscale apartment complex favored by young professionals trying to make it in the city. For 3 days straight, from September 26th to the 28th, he knocked on the door of room 604. Each time, silence. Nothing unusual about that. The tenant was probably at work, maybe traveling, living life. But when he returned on Friday the 29th, something changed. A smell, sour, almost chemical, seeping from the unit's ventilation fan into the corridor. It hit him like a wall. Suspicious, concerned, he contacted the building manager who arrived around 1 p.m. The manager tried the handle. To his surprise, the door was unlocked. Just unlocked. No key needed. No forced entry. They stepped inside and immediately knew something was terribly wrong. The apartment belonged to 28-year-old Yoko Yoshida. She had been living there alone since 1995. 5 years of routine, of creating art, of building a modest life. But now, she lay face up on a futon in her bedroom, wearing only a t-shirt, undressed from the waist down. A white cloth had been placed carefully across her face, almost ceremonially. Her skin had turned brown. Her body had bloated. Experts would later determine she had been dead for at least 10 days. Around her neck were faint marks, the telltale signs of strangulation. Someone had killed her with their bare hands, squeezing the life from her throat until she stopped breathing. But here's where it gets strange. Nothing in the apartment was disturbed. No ransacking. No overturned furniture. Her wallet sat untouched on the desk. Her bank book, credit cards, all there. Most incredibly, roughly 3 million yen in cash, about 25,000 US dollars, just sitting there in plain view. Whoever killed her wasn't interested in money. There were no signs of sexual assault, no male DNA on or around the body, no indication of a struggle. It was as if Yoko simply let her killer in. Or the killer already had access. One detail particularly unsettled investigators. A spare key, one which Yoko always kept inside the apartment for emergencies, was found lying in the 6th floor hallway outside her door. How did it get there? Why? If you're finding this case as fascinating and disturbing as I am, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps the algorithm show these stories to people who appreciate deep dives into unsolved mysteries. Detectives began with the obvious questions. Who was Yoko Yoshida? Who did she know? Were there disputes in her personal life? As they pieced together her existence, they discovered she worked as an independent manga artist under the pen name Shishisaki Kulu. She wrote, illustrated, and self-published BL doujinshi, niche LGBT romance comics. Not mainstream by any means, but within Tokyo's underground comic scene, she had carved out a small following. Her writing was bright, energetic, humorous, eccentric. The few fans she had adored her work. But could one of them have taken that admiration too far? Like most doujinshi creators at the time, Yoko printed her real home address inside her books, a quirk of 90s printing culture, born from a time when the internet was young and conventions were how creators built communities. But it meant any fan, any stranger, any opportunist knew exactly where she lived. Yoko was known for her kind and trusting nature. If someone showed up at her door claiming to be a fan, she might have invited them in for tea. She might have felt flattered. She might not have seen the danger until it was too late. But her address being public knowledge raised another possibility. Throughout the 90s and early 2000s, doujinshi artists were often targeted by scouts from the adult entertainment industry. Vultures who trolled comic conventions looking for young, pretty, friendly creators who barely scraped by financially. They'd buy a book, note the address from inside the cover, wait outside the artist's apartment building, manufacture a chance encounter, and pitch a high-paying part-time opportunity. According to people who knew her, Yoko had started working nights at a members-only club in Shibuya, allegedly serving as a call girl for wealthy clients. Among her customers, it was rumored, were minor celebrities and comedians. Police noted the expensive clothing in her apartment, designer bags she never used, high-end jewelry she had no real interest in wearing. Friends said she preferred quirky, thrifted pieces. The luxury items looked like gifts from rich clients. And that 3 million yen in cash? Probably payment. Reports claimed that at her peak, Yoko earned between 30 to 50,000 yen per night, roughly $280 to $470 at the time. Though demand had begun to decline as she got older, she was reportedly preparing to quit and move back in with her parents. But could one of those clients have decided she wasn't allowed to leave? Had someone grown possessive? Obsessed? Investigators interviewed Yoko's co-workers and her employer, but nothing concrete emerged. Some believe the establishment was simply protecting powerful clients who preferred discretion. Others say the customers themselves quietly shut down the inquiry, using influence and money to make questions disappear. With no viable suspects, the investigation stalled, and there it might have remained, gathering dust in a filing cabinet, if not for television. 4 years later, the case was thrust back into the spotlight thanks to a TV Asahi program called Tokudane, a long-running investigative show that revisited cold cases with dramatic reenactments, psychic consultants, and public appeals. During one broadcast focused on Yoko's murder, they brought on a British man named Chris Robinson, known professionally as the Psychic Dreamer. He claimed to have worked with MI5. He said he could dream crime scenes in advance, receiving visions from beyond. Through his so-called mind's eye, he claimed to have seen the killer leave Yoko's building, walk to JR Kamedo Station, and board a blue streetcar. His vision was apparently so clear that he produced a sketch of the suspect, a man between 25 and 35 years old, around 165 centimeters tall with a medium build. South Asian features, deep-set eyes. He was certain, absolutely certain. This desperate bid for attention resulted in dozens of callers flooding the show's phone lines, accusing various foreign residents of being the culprit. Among those callers was a man known simply as Mr. A, who claimed to be Yoko's manager. He told producers he possessed a letter written by Yoko shortly before her death, describing harassment by a foreign stalker. It sounded sensational, exactly the kind of twist a TV special thrives on. So the broadcasters invited Mr. A onto the show to share this letter. It read as follows: "I might be killed in 2 or 3 days. I have a feeling I'm being watched. The person is a fan of my work and lives in my neighborhood. He writes strange notes to me every day, and he isn't Japanese, which scares me even more." But behind the scenes, the show had the letter analyzed by a handwriting specialist who stated with 100% certainty that it didn't match Yoko's writing. It did, however, match perfectly with Mr. A's handwriting. On camera, he was confronted by a former police interrogator. Under pressure, Mr. A admitted he wasn't Yoko's manager at all. He had forged the note out of jealousy. He was a fellow cartoonist, part of Yoko's inner circle, and felt overshadowed by her modest success. But he insisted, repeatedly insisted, he had nothing to do with her death. Police never named him as a suspect. The incident cast a long shadow over the investigation, muddying public perception and leading to years of speculation about foreign stalkers that probably never existed. Take a breath here. Let that sink in. A man forged evidence on national television to frame an innocent demographic for murder because he was jealous of a dead woman's minor success. And he faced 0 consequences. Mr. A was never charged. Neither was psychic detective Chris Robinson, who helped stoke xenophobic panic. Think about that for a moment. If their manufactured story had succeeded, an innocent person might have been arrested, convicted, imprisoned. Would they have come clean then? Would they have admitted to making it all up? I doubt it. If you're still with me, and I hope you are because this case gets even stranger, consider subscribing. We're going deep into the weeds of unsolved Japanese mysteries, and there's so much more to uncover. Mr. A's admission that he and others envied Yoko led some to wonder whether a fellow artist could have been involved. The doujinshi community is notoriously insular. When investigators and reporters came asking questions, Yoko's inner circle reportedly closed ranks. They've since defended themselves, saying they were only standoffish because police openly mocked them for being into, quote, weird stuff, treating their art form as inherently suspicious rather than legitimate creative work. No evidence ever emerged implicating any of them. But one Japanese commentator who dug deeply into this case put forward a different theory, one that shifts focus away from fans and clients entirely, back inside the building itself. YouTuber Himuro Eski points to several small details that don't quite add up. The census worker visited Yoko's door repeatedly between September 26th and 28th without noticing any smell. Yet on the 29th, he was suddenly hit by an overpowering stench leaking from the ventilation fan. Her body had been decomposing for at least 10 days by that point. Why didn't the smell register earlier? The spare key found in the 6th floor hallway only after police arrived, despite residents and the census worker coming and going for days. And the fact that there was no sign of struggle within the apartment, no unknown DNA on the bed, despite Yoko's lower body being exposed. These inconsistencies troubled him. His theory: Yoko may not have been killed in her own bedroom at all. She might have been murdered in another apartment within the same complex. Then her body moved back to room 604, later using a key taken from her person. In this version, the killer was a fellow resident, or someone with insider access. Someone who knew Yoko was planning to move out soon. Someone who panicked when the census worker came sniffing around. According to this theory, the killer returned on the morning of the 29th, switched on the ventilation fan to force the smell into the corridor, left the door unlocked, and dropped her spare key in the hallway. A calculated bit of staging designed to push investigators toward a simple lover with a key scenario, steering them away from the possibility of a neighbor or building staff member. It's only a theory. Not one police have endorsed, but it underlines just how many questions about Yoko's final hours remain unanswered. 25 years later, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police still list her murder as an active investigation, one of many unsolved cases from the late 90s and early 2000s that slipped through the cracks. Unless new information surfaces, the truth behind what happened inside or perhaps outside room 604 may remain a mystery forever. But before we move to our next case, I want you to think about something. Yoko Yoshida printed her address in her books because that's what everyone did. She trusted people because she had a kind heart. She let someone into her apartment, or someone already had access, and it cost her everything. That's the fragility we're dealing with here. Japan has long been cited as one of the safest countries in the world. People leave laptops unattended in cafes. Small children walk to and from school alone. Commuters doze off on crowded trains without clutching their bags. For many locals, danger feels distant, something that happens elsewhere. But that perception doesn't tell the whole story. While Japan's overall crime rate is indeed low, violence against women and girls remains a persistent and deeply underreported problem. The result is a society that appears safe on the surface but hides a darker undercurrent, one where predators exploit trust and complacency, where guards are lowered, where blind spots are plentiful, and all a monster needs is one thing: an opportunity. Nana Sakoma was born in 1978 in Chiba Prefecture, just east of Tokyo. Her parents divorced when she was very young. She grew up living with her mother and grandmother in a modest single-story apartment in Omi-Odai. To keep the household afloat, her mother worked long nights as a hostess at a local snack bar. While she was away, Nana's elderly grandmother was lenient with rules. It wasn't unusual for Nana to stay up late or wander around the neighborhood after dark. Not that there was anything to worry about, of course. Omi-Odai was a tight-knit community. Most locals knew the bright, well-mannered Sakoma girl by name. She felt safe. Her family felt safe. Everyone felt safe. In 1991, Nana began her first year at Omi Junior High School and quickly formed a wide circle of friends. Having just turned 13, she was beginning to develop her own personality. Teachers described her as remarkably confident, sociable, full of energy. On October 26th of that year, just after midterm exams, Nana and 3 female classmates spent the day playing together. As the sun set, they still felt like they hadn't had enough fun. Nana suggested they all go back to her apartment to hang out. Her mother was working a night shift. Her grandmother wouldn't mind if she brought friends over. Together, the group rode their bikes to Nana's flat and spent the evening watching TV, chatting, laughing quietly, while Grandma slept in her room. By midnight, the girls had grown hungry. They checked the kitchen but found no leftovers in the fridge. Nana proposed going out to buy some onigiri and snacks at the nearby convenience store. When they arrived, however, the store was already closed. One girl remembered there was a 24-hour mini-stop about 4 kilometers away. They all agreed to ride there instead. Half an hour later, they reached the convenience store, bought supplies, and started cycling back toward Nana's place. At around 1 a.m., while leading the way through a particularly dark and unlit stretch of road, Nana turned her head to check on her friends. While doing so, she hit a large branch lying across the pavement, likely blown from a tree by a recent typhoon. It sent her tumbling from her bike. It wasn't a bad fall. Nothing serious. The other 3 stopped to help her up. And at that precise moment, a man appeared behind them. He was about 50 years old, wearing a horizontally striped long-sleeve shirt, black trousers, and a black knitted cap. His face was round, his eyes long and sharp, his cheeks red. He stood near a billboard with his hands in his pockets and barked out, "What do you think you're doing?" His tone was so harsh, so authoritative, that the 4 girls froze in fear. The man stepped closer. Now beside them, he claimed to be a local youth guidance counselor. He said that under Japanese regulations, it was illegal for minors to be out past 11 p.m. without a guardian. At the time, official counselors did volunteer throughout the country to prevent juvenile delinquency. But most of these counselors were women. Most worked in groups. Few worked past 9 p.m., and all of them wore badges, armbands, carried ID. This man showed no identification. He immediately threatened to call the police, but added that he might change his mind if the group had a good excuse for being out so late. Frightened and ashamed, the girls lowered their heads and stayed silent. "You kids have been sniffing paint thinner, haven't you?" he said, his voice dripping with accusation. Scowling, he told them that one representative had to come with him to a police box to explain everything. After scanning their faces for a moment, he pointed directly at Nana. "You, come with me." Perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of a sense of compliance, Nana didn't argue. He was an authority figure after all. At least that's what he claimed to be. And so she simply followed him as he led her toward a small side road off Route 126. As she disappeared from view, the man turned back to the remaining 3 girls and bluntly stated, "You don't have to wait. Go home." When one of them asked what to do about Nana's bike, he replied without looking back, "I'll use my truck to transport it later." Taking the counselor at his word, the 3 girls rode back to Nana's apartment complex and waited for her outside. 30 minutes turned into an hour. An hour turned into an hour and a half. As they sat deliberating, 2 boys they knew from school passed by. The girls, growing increasingly anxious, told them everything. The boys thought the whole situation sounded wrong, very wrong. They advised the girls to tell Nana's family immediately. Since Nana had the only key to the apartment, they banged on the door until her grandmother woke up. Shaken, the grandmother called Nana's mother, who rushed home. Together, they searched the entirety of the Wakaba district, including the narrow alley where Nana had last been seen. But terrifyingly, they found no trace of either the missing girl or the stern man who had led her away. With nowhere left to turn, they called the police at 4:20 a.m. The response they received was chilling. There hadn't been any youth guidance counselors on duty along that entire route that night. Let that sink in for a moment. A stranger in the middle of the night convinced 4 young girls he was someone in authority. isolated one of them, and vanished. And nobody, not the police, not witnesses, not anyone, could find him. If you're feeling that weight right now, that sinking dread, smash that like button and leave a comment with your thoughts. Do you think this was opportunistic, or was it planned? Because what comes next might change your mind. The authorities immediately scoured local roads, knocked on doors, and released a sketch of the suspect based on the girl's descriptions. In time, witnesses began coming forward. At 10:30 p.m. on the 26th, several hours before Nana went missing, a tipster reported seeing a suspicious-looking man who resembled the sketch wandering near the back of a driving school in Sakazukicho, about 1 kilometer from where Nana was taken. 20 minutes after Nana was escorted away, at 1:20 a.m. on the 27th, a truck driver reported seeing a girl with an adult at the Sakazuki intersection, roughly 260 meters from the abduction site. At 2:15 a.m., another witness claimed to have seen a girl and a man walking along Monreal Street, about 300 meters from Chisro Dakita Station. There were also unconfirmed reports of a man and a girl walking toward a residential area near that same station at the same time. Over 150 officers searched the 4-kilometer area around the abduction site, but no evidence connected to the crime was ever found. No ransom call was ever made. No further leads presented themselves. The man's confident approach suggested this may not have been his first abduction. But investigators were unable to link Nana's disappearance to any other missing persons reports in the local area. Despite leaflets, sketches, and endless door-to-door inquiries, the case stagnated. Decades passed. The other girls grew up, had children of their own, but Nana never came home. Her grandmother died within a year of her disappearance, reportedly from shock and guilt. Her mother moved away after their apartment was demolished in 2001. She still visits shrines, bowing and praying for her daughter's safe return, a prospect that feels more impossible with each passing year. To this day, discussion continues on internet forums. Some find it hard to believe that an opportunistic kidnapper just happened to be in that precise spot where Nana fell. His comment about putting her bike in the back of his van suggested he may have been following the group in a vehicle. But if so, none of the girls saw or heard him before he suddenly emerged from the darkness. Others have a more chilling theory, that the large branch lying horizontal across that pitch-black stretch of road hadn't been blown there by strong winds at all, that the man deliberately placed it there, that he was hiding in the shadows just off the roadside, watching, waiting, hoping that some unsupervised child would spring his trap. That might seem unlikely, given the late hour and the amount of luck required for his plan to work. But who knows how many nights he may have gone out fishing for prey? Who knows how many other times it may have worked? Perhaps the most haunting theory is the simplest, that the man was just there, ready to act at a moment's notice. And the only thing stopping other ordinary-looking monsters like him is the right opportunity. One Japanese YouTuber explored a more specific theory, that a man known as Suspect A, arrested in the late 1960s for a series of assaults, may actually be connected to Nana's case. Suspect A was convicted of impersonating a juvenile officer or police officer to lure school-age girls into isolated areas, usually stairwells or storage spaces. He was later caught attempting to coerce another girl. In 1991, Nana was taken by a man pretending to be a juvenile officer, which closely mirrors Suspect A's behavior. At the time of Nana's vanishing, suspect A would have been around 52 years old, which aligns with witness descriptions. The theory speculates that Nana's abduction may have been impulsive, triggered by psychological relapse, that the suspect may have taken her to a temporary residence, dormitory, or workplace where the crime escalated. Suspect A is currently 86 years old and still lives close to where Nana disappeared. This theory remains unconfirmed, but it's one of the few that attempts to connect dots law enforcement couldn't. Years after the incident, rumors circulated that National Route 126 was used by North Korean agents throughout the 90s, raising the possibility that Nana was abducted by foreign operatives and smuggled to the Hermit Kingdom, like Megumi Yokota and others. No concrete evidence was ever found to support that theory, and given that the suspect had an authentically Japanese accent, it's more likely the evil in this case was homegrown. To some, the only real question that remains is whether Nana was trafficked or buried. If she was trafficked, Nana Sakoma would be 47 years old today. If she was buried, her remains have yet to be found. Regardless, the statute of limitations in this case expired before Japan's legal revisions. If the perpetrator is ever identified, legally speaking, he'll be untouchable. That's the bitter reality families of cold case victims face. Even if the truth comes out, justice may not follow. Before we continue, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We're halfway through, and trust me, the next cases are going to test everything you thought you knew about manipulation and obsession. Fortune tellers, mystics, spiritual advisors. There's no shortage of them in Japan. On any given day, you'll see their shops on busy streets offering palm readings or tarot card sessions for a couple thousand yen. Most are harmless hustlers selling vague hope to the superstitious, but not all of them are playing games. In the case of 74-year-old Hirohito Shiba, things were far more sinister. Unlike street corner psychics, Shiba ran his operation from a private residence in Higashi Yamato, a quiet residential bedroom community in West Tokyo. Neighbors noticed the same unsettling pattern: a steady flow of women, both new assistants and new clients, entering his home, but almost never leaving. After just one visit, he somehow convinced each of them to drop their families, their obligations, their entire lives, and marry him one after another. By early 2023, he had built himself a polygamy cult consisting of 9 wives and 3 children he had fathered with them. These women weren't just his followers. They were obsessed with him, devoted even. And that devotion made no sense to outsiders. Shiba wasn't young. He wasn't charming in any conventional way. But what he lacked in looks, he made up for in manipulative charisma. He began building his network of so-called concubine brides as early as the year 2000, after setting up his fortune-telling business. In his own words, he had discovered the power of a seduction spell in a dream, one which made him popular with women and young girls, a way to brainwash them and have them dote on his every whim, a way to turn them into his slaves. But what he called magic, most would call psychological manipulation. Gradually, he lured women aged between 20 and 49 to his home by placing ads in the local paper for fortune-telling assistance. The type of person who applies for that kind of role is already more susceptible to manipulation than the average person. From there, the pattern was almost always the same. Shiba would isolate his target, plant the fear of supernatural harm, and present himself as the only person who could protect her. "A demonic soul is haunting you," he'd say. "Only I can save you from it." And due to a strange mix of fear, naivety, and delusion, many believed him wholeheartedly. They chose to devote their lives to their savior, living with him and catering to his every desire. Once he had a woman under his control, he'd only allow her to leave his home unaccompanied to work and bring home money. On average, each wife brought home 80,000 yen per month, all of which went directly to Shiba. Determined to increase both his bank balance and bride balance, he ordered each wife to recruit new members from their workplaces. But those co-workers they brought home weren't always as gullible as the first wave of recruits. So when psychological manipulation failed, Shiba resorted to blackmail and intimidation. In 2006, he was arrested after threatening a woman in her 20s, forcing her to live with him and his other wives, and in the words of prosecutors, scaring her into consenting to intercourse, which obviously isn't consent. When the woman didn't fall for his usual mind tricks, he told her, "If you don't do what I say, you'll be chopped up, minced, and processed at a nearby factory." He also stated that if she ever tried to leave, she'd be, quote, "rounded up." At least some of Shiba's wives helped keep her imprisoned in the home. Thankfully, the woman eventually escaped and went straight to authorities. Unfortunately, the media didn't take Shiba's crimes seriously at the time. They referred to him in headlines as harem man, treating his antics as more of a joke than anything serious or malicious. Though accused of polygamy, which is illegal in Japan, Shiba technically hadn't broken the law. He divorced each of his wives shortly after marrying them and giving them his name. As such, he was never actually wed to more than one at a time. Because of that, the only things he was found guilty of were coercion and intimidation. In court, he promised the judge he would stop living with multiple women, that he'd send each of them back to their parents' homes. "I never want to do anything like this again," he said. Convinced, the judge gave him a 1-year and 6-month sentence, suspended for 4 years, meaning Shiba didn't spend a single day in prison. After the 2006 case, many parents arrived at Shiba's home to pick up their brainwashed daughters. According to locals, they stood outside the house day and night for months. But their daughters never came out. Shiba put up signs around the house saying "keep out" and installed around 10 security cameras. That worked. The parents gave up. Unsurprisingly, he had carried on controlling his victims, not with chains, but with fear. Fear of curses, of spirits, and later of alien abduction. In mid-2022, a teenage girl whose name hasn't been revealed was lured to Shiba's home by his 43-year-old wife, Chiaki. Once inside, Shiba emerged in a black hooded robe, cornered the young girl, and forced her to watch television footage of aliens and UFOs for around 6 hours in an attempt to make her believe in their existence. During that session, Shiba reportedly told her, "You're going to die soon. You'll be abducted by aliens, skinned, and eaten. They'll replace you with a copy of yourself." The only way to avoid such a terrible fate, he told the girl, was to allow him to have his way with her. Though the girl initially resisted, Shiba gradually ground her down. After the crime, he tried to keep the adolescent quiet by telling her things like, "If you mention this to other people or the police, I won't be able to help you." He then told her to come back for additional alien resistance sessions, which went on for 2 months. In December, he tried to pull the same trick on another teenager Chiaki brought home. The bottom line is, "You'll die soon," he told her. "You'll be taken away by aliens. To be saved, we must become a couple." In both instances, Chiaki assisted Shiba in convincing the girls of the existence of extraterrestrials. Thankfully, the second girl spoke to her family, who in turn contacted police. When officers finally knocked on Shiba's door on February 7, 2023, the old man resisted by spraying bear repellent through a crack in the door, injuring the faces of 6 policemen. Eventually, they forced entry. It was then that the full extent of the group's cult-like lifestyle was revealed. Authorities arrested Shiba and Chiaki on suspicion of constructive forcible intercourse. This time, the Japanese public called for a more serious sentence than what he had received 2 decades prior. In court, Shiba stated, "Do you want to know why I believe in aliens and UFOs? It's because I've met an alien before. I was told there was a plan to reduce the world's population and that Japanese women were being targeted. I was told the only way to save them from aliens was to have relations with them." He denied the charges, saying, "I never forced anyone to do anything. I only told people what appeared in my dreams." The jury was unconvinced. Pending their sentencing hearing, both Chiaki and Shiba were allowed to return to their home and continue living with the rest of their family. However, in December 2024, Chiaki was discovered dead inside the residence. There isn't much information available about how her life came to an end. Then, in January 2025, just 1 day before his sentence ruling, Shiba's remaining wives found him dead inside the house. Authorities determined he had ended his own existence. Hirohito Shiba's sudden death closed the legal case against him, but left countless questions unanswered. How many wives did he control over the decades? How many still live with the trauma? And how could one man maintain such a powerful hold over so many victims for so long without intervention? While researching this case, I couldn't help but be reminded of Futoshi Matsunaga, the Japanese mind control killer I covered years ago. Thankfully, Shiba didn't use his victims to kill other people like Matsunaga did. But we all know where this type of perverse narcissism tends to lead. I'm glad his operation was exposed in time. If you're still watching, thank you. Seriously. These cases aren't easy to sit through, but they're important. They show us how manipulation works, how predators operate, and why we can't afford to look away. Hit that like button if you're still with me, and let's keep going. Before she became a viral meme, Yuka Takaoka was by all accounts an ordinary young woman trying to find her place in Tokyo. Born in China, she moved to Japan when she was just 2 years old. She grew up quietly in Hokkaido, the type of girl classmates described as shy but sweet. Someone who preferred drawing, anime, and online communities to crowded social spaces. After finishing school, she moved to the capital to study design. But like many young newcomers, she struggled to find stability. According to the press, she eventually shifted into the nightlife industry, starting at a girls' bar before transitioning to full-time hostessing in Kabukicho. What most people outside Japan don't realize is just how circular that world really is. Hostesses spend their nights comforting lonely men, flattering them, listening to their problems. But when their shift ends, many of them fall into the same emotional dependencies they see in their customers. In Shinjuku, it's an open secret. Many hostesses spend their entire earnings on hosts, the male counterpart to their own job. It's a cycle of loneliness. The fantasy relationships they perform for clients become the ones they start craving for themselves. According to her former co-workers, Yuka slipped into that same feedback loop almost immediately. That's how she met the man who would come to dominate her thoughts, a club fusion host known as Luna. In nightlife circles, he was a rising star, stylish, effortlessly charming, soft-spoken, skilled at making any woman feel like she mattered by remembering personal details, doting on her, laughing at her jokes, acting chivalrous. For most of his customers, it was a scripted fantasy they willingly bought into. For Yuka, though, it was real. Thoughts of Luna consumed her mind. She admired him in a way fans admire an idol, intensely and without the emotional boundaries most adults develop. She started visiting Luna at the club 3 times a week, reportedly spending upwards of 50,000 yen per visit and racking up a huge amount of debt in the process. To keep up with her tri-weekly visits to the host club, she began working for a delivery health service, a common euphemism for escort work. She hated it, never told Luna the truth. Instead, she invented a story about a sugar daddy who simply took her on trips in exchange for cash. Luna personally thanked her for going on those sugar daddy vacations. After all, the money she spent on him at the club helped improve his host ranking, a publicly displayed score which directly correlated with his own earnings. When it came to making money, Luna was extremely driven. Before becoming a host, he'd been living rough and had no other qualifications to fall back on. He had no intention of slipping down the scoreboard and losing his new high-paying job, and so he casually tossed around words like, "I love you," which meant little to him, but everything to Yuka. He even took her to love hotels after his shift to keep her loyal. Just like he did with many of his other customers, Yuka always paid for the room. To cut out the middleman, Yuka leased a 5th-floor apartment near Luna's workplace, certain they were destined to be together. She even told friends she wanted to, quote, devote herself entirely to him. If Luna failed to answer one of her calls, if one of her messages went unread, if he refused to come over and see her, she would threaten to jump off the rooftop. He had to be available, always. He was her boyfriend after all, but he didn't see things that way. Luna undoubtedly cared about Yuka on some level, but at the end of the day, he was a host. His job depended on him being available and flirtatious. Having a public girlfriend could destroy his sales. He always tried to calm Yuka down, telling her he might quit in the autumn so they could be together properly. He meant it hypothetically, but Yuka took it as a promise, as a certainty. Still, Luna continued to spend time with his other female clients, and that slowly ate away at Yuka. In a journal entry, she wrote, "I want to be a tragic heroine. How is it possible for him to look at other women than me? I know killing him is for the best. If I kill him, it'll be eternal, and there'll be no pain afterwards. I don't know anything other than him." By May 2019, the tension between the two had curdled. After having drinks with a female client on the 22nd, Luna stopped by Yuka's apartment to help her clean and put up some curtains. Exhausted, he ran a bath, dozed off in the tub, and later collapsed into Yuka's bed. While he slept, Yuka took the opportunity to go through his phone and discovered photos of him sitting with another woman at the bar. The pictures showed nothing remotely intimate. He was just doing what he always did at work. But in Yuka's increasingly unstable mind, it was proof of an unforgivable betrayal. And so at around 3:50 a.m. on the 23rd, Yuka walked quietly into the kitchenette, took a fruit knife, and returned to the bedroom. She knelt beside Luna, watched him for a moment, and then plunged the blade into his abdomen with enough force to puncture internal organs. Luna woke up. At first, feeling no pain whatsoever, he asked Yuka what she was doing. That's when she removed the blade. And as it scraped its way out, the agony finally hit him. He crawled into the hallway, leaving a trail of blood across the floorboards. He made his way out of the apartment and toward the elevator. Yuka followed him slowly, watching as he made his way into the lobby. She asked Luna whether he loved her. He responded, "Yes, just call an ambulance." "No," she replied, "let's die together." A neighbor, hearing Luna's faint cries for help, called emergency services. When officers arrived, they found exactly the scene a bystander would later photograph. Yuka sitting beside the bleeding host, her shirt soaked with his blood, her expression flat and distant. She was on the phone with one of her friends, talking casually about other matters. That image exploded across Japanese Twitter, then the global internet. She was instantly labeled the real-life yandere. In Japanese fiction, a yandere is a character who starts off sweet and affectionate, but later becomes possessive, delusional, and violent. And Yuka, with her blunt-cut bangs, delicate features, and chillingly calm demeanor, seemed to fit that archetype with unnerving precision. Yandere obsessives would later start a GoFundMe to bail her out, and even raised around $3,000. Luna slipped into a coma for nearly a week. Doctors said he only had a 20% chance of survival. Yet miraculously, he pulled through. He spent more than a month in hospital, unable at first to speak or walk. Nightmares tormented him. Recurring visions of Yuka twisting her body to crawl through his hospital window. He became so frightened she'd find him that he asked to be placed in a windowless room. However, he later said he bore no hatred toward her, understood her point of view, and was working on becoming a better person himself. In an interview, he explained, "If possible, I want people to be able to live a normal life rather than paying for their sins." Following the incident, Luna rebranded himself as Phoenix Luna, a nod to his close call with death and subsequent rebirth. Despite no longer being able to drink due to liver damage sustained in the attack, he's now a more popular host than he was before. Known as the boy to kill for, his earnings have increased substantially. Meanwhile, Yuka underwent psychiatric evaluation and confessed to everything immediately. In handwritten letters, later released to the media, she said, "I stabbed him because I love him so much. I couldn't help it." She described the act as a kind of shared death, insisting she never intended to stab anyone else. During the trial, prosecutors argued that Yuka's obsession had crossed into delusion, that she had constructed a fantasy romance around a man whose job was to literally sell emotional intimacy. They said she wasn't just jealous. She wanted to possess him completely. And when she felt that slipping away, she chose destruction over abandonment. In December 2019, the Tokyo District Court sentenced her to 3 years and 6 months in prison. Many considered it shockingly lenient for attempted murder. Others pointed to her remorse, her confession, her lack of criminal history. The media also reported she reached a civil settlement with Luna, reportedly around 5 million yen, about $40,000 at the time. She also sent him a direct apology letter in which she said sorry more than a dozen times, which clearly proved she was remorseful. The judge took that letter into account, and I really hope It's not the actual reason for her short sentence. After the incident, Yuka became an online icon. Fans flooded social media with original artwork, cosplays, tribute videos, and memes, all dedicated to yandere-chan. Yuka started appearing in yandere edits, TikToks, profile pictures, and even became a symbol of certain aesthetics. Her worshippers described her as the beautiful criminal, making them the male equivalent of those women who gushed over attractive mugshots. The more Yuka was condemned by mainstream society, the more her cult of personality grew. Even today, long after her release, she remains a popular figure online with tens of thousands of followers across Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. To some, she's a cautionary tale about the host club ecosystem. To others, disturbingly, she's an icon. In reality though, Yuka Takaoka is just a young woman whose loneliness spiraled into delusion and whose obsession nearly cost a man his life. And that's where we have to stop and ask ourselves a question. How did we get here? How did we reach a point where someone who nearly murdered another human being becomes a meme, an aesthetic, a role model? If you've made it this far, thank you. Really. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on these cases. Which one disturbed you the most? And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. We're exploring the darkest corners of unsolved mysteries, and there's so much more to come. These 5 cases from Japan paint a picture of a society that's safe on the surface, but deeply complicated underneath. Yoko Yoshida, a manga artist killed in her own apartment with no clear motive and no suspect ever charged. Nana Sakoma, a 13-year-old girl who vanished after trusting the wrong person and was never seen again. Hirohito Shiba, a manipulative cult leader who controlled women for decades using fear and false promises. Yuka Takaoka, a young woman whose obsession with a host turned deadly. Each case is different, but they all share something in common. Isolation, whether it's physical isolation, like Yoko living alone in her apartment, or emotional isolation, like Yuka falling into the host club cycle, or psychological isolation, like the women trapped in Shiba's cult. Isolation creates vulnerability, and predators know how to exploit that. Japan is often held up as a model of safety and order, and in many ways, it is. But these cases remind us that safety is fragile, that trust can be weaponized, that evil doesn't always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it wears the mask of authority, like the fake counselor who took Nana. Sometimes it hides behind spiritual guidance, like Shiba. Sometimes it's wrapped in the language of love, like Luna's charm. And when these cases go unsolved, when justice isn't served, the wounds don't heal. Families are left in limbo. Communities are left with questions, and the internet, as always, fills the void with theories, speculation, and sometimes disturbing admiration. Before we close out, I want to leave you with this. Every unsolved case represents a person, a life that mattered, a family that's still searching for answers. So if you know anything about these cases, if you recognize a detail, if you have information, speak up, share it, because sometimes the smallest piece of information can crack a case wide open. Thank you for watching. If you made it to the end, you're part of a community that cares about these stories, that refuses to let them be forgotten. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment letting me know what you think. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.